A man named Alfred Dewayne Brown actually spent 12 years in prison, and not just in prison, but on death row for a crime he did not commit. And even after a special prosecutor and a judge sided with him, agreeing he is actually innocent, the state comptroller this week, in a surprise move, denied the wrongfully convicted former death row prisoner compensation for the 12 years he spent behind bars. And let me take you back into a little bit of what happened, all right? So earlier this year, after a 10-month investigation by special prosecutor John Raley, they found no credible indications of Brown's guilt. Harris County District Attorney in Texas, Kim Ogg, took the case back to court so they found, just to break it down, found no credible indications of his guilt, but then they have to go back to court to find him innocent, which is such a waste of taxpayer money when no credible indication of guilt should do just that, but it doesn't. But DA Ogg took the case back to court to ask for an amended judgment, including the words actual innocence. So this didn't even happen immediately. The judge then ends up pondering, right? The judge pondered this matter for weeks, wrangling with the question of whether his court had jurisdiction to reopen an already closed case. Again, where a man had been wrongly convicted and already spent 12 years on death row. In the end, this judge did, though, decide he did, but now that's when the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts has determined otherwise and jumped in and said no. So here's the thing, this is what is being said here. So it is not clear that the district court had jurisdiction to withdraw and re-enter a dismissal or enter a second dismissal in Mr. Brown's case. This is a letter from the comptroller, okay? Saying consequently, the amended motion to dismiss and the order of dismissal do not clearly indicate on their face that Mr. Brown is entitled to compensation. And so just so you know, the compensation that we're talking about under Texas statute is more than $2 million. So we're talking about a lot of money, and we're talking about a lot of years, a lot of life spent on death row. Just to give you back a look into the case, because there's another part of this that I think everyone needs to know. So the now 37-year-old was sent to death row in 2005 after being convicted in the killing of Houston police officer Charles Clark during a botched robbery of an Ace America check cashing in South Houston. Brown always has said that he's innocent, that he'd been at his girlfriend's apartment just after the slaying, and that a landline phone call he'd made to her that morning would prove it. So think about that, that's important, because for years, officials actually claimed they had no records of that call. In 2013, though, a police investigator, Breck McDaniel, uncovered the phone records in his garage, a discovery that paved the way for Brown's release. Brown, though, wasn't eligible for a state compensation because even though then District Attorney Devin Anderson agreed to dismiss the charges, she never actually said he was innocent. Meantime, prosecutors maintain that the evidence in McDaniel's garage had been inadvertently misplaced and not intentionally concealed. So we could have not had this entire trial. But in early 2018, in the course of discovery for the lawsuit, the DA that I told you about before, Ogg, her office recovered a 2003 email showing that McDaniel had told former prosecutor Dan Rizzo about the phone records well before the case went to trial. So this is not only a case of a man being falsely accused, falsely convicted, and life ruined, but this could be a case of some sort of police or prosecutorial misconduct.
It's usually that way.
Yeah.
This isn't surprising that they would have a difficult time offering up compensation. I mean, have we looked at reparations for slavery? I mean, let's just call it what it is. Even the criminal justice system, the prison industrial complex, it was created post-slavery because they were angry about the fact that they could no longer profit off of black bodies, and that now we would somehow be filled with ego and pride or whatever it is they thought that we would have. And so they had to break us down and put us in our place. And so we still continue to see that trend play out in the American justice system. The fact that no one up to this point has come up with a plan or an idea about how they're going to compensate people who've been incarcerated against, for something that they didn't do. It's just them sticking to the energy that it was created under.
I think this speaks to our maybe general society, I'll say our country since this is the case here, about the care for wrongfully convicted folks in the country. So in order for them to continue to get away with this, in order for prosecutors to do the things that they've done in many cases, this isn't new, many cases about concealing evidence, knowingly going after the wrong person, and then denying then compensation like this is, they're like, well, nobody's gonna care. The public doesn't really matter. We talked before, it was during the Juneteenth special about reparations for a while. And I said, the people that are running for office say, yeah, sure. They're saying it, but they don't really care. They can say it and not mean it because who's gonna hold me to it? Well, afterwards, is someone gonna say, hey, you said you wanted to influence some form of reparations, and then we go, well, nobody really cares, so I can say it and move right on.
Well, look at the public opinion, though, of people who are incarcerated. Like even when you see Black men who are gunned down by police, if you go through the comment section of the news article, the first thing you will see is, what did he do? Maybe he should have listened to the officer. Maybe he should have said it nicely. Maybe and they come up with every single scenario possible, other than the fact that this officer is racist and belongs to a system that continues to marginalize and essentially erase Black people, Black bodies.
We see prosecutors as members of society that are needed to get rid of crime off the streets. So.
But not at all costs necessary, and that's right. It's like,
so when they do horrible things like this, which again they've done over and over again, and we're just seeing it now more. Same thing with police violence. It's not like this is new. It's just we're able to see it now because everyone has a computer in their hand. So if there's some kind of I guess punishment for DAs to do, or for prosecutors to do things like this, put them in prison. People start saying, how dare you putting our prosecutors in jail for doing their jobs, because we care about those people. But in reality, if we cared about crime deterrent and keeping people from doing things illegally, which is what they're doing, we'd put them in jail. It's like, okay, this guy spent 12 years in prison for something you guys purposely hid and concealed from everything that was happening. How about you go to jail for 12 years? Let's match up those things and give this man his $2 million.
And we'd also make the focus on recidivism a priority. We're talking about this vicious cycle of incarcerating people. Not only did they incarcerate an innocent man, but then to send him back out into the streets with no money, no way of supporting himself, no real. And so what does the likelihood look like that someone like that would fall back into the system?
We get people in the system and the government pays for a lot of times private prisons. You have to fill the beds. There's incentive for the government, our taxpayer dollars, to go to private prisons to make sure they fill those beds and make money off of. They made money off of folks in prison. And then when they come out, you're gonna make sure you don't give them anything that you wrongfully got them in prison for. You make sure they don't get by the way, $2 million is not enough. I'm not spending 12 years in prison for $2 million.
Because it's not talked about enough that going to prison, it's like quadruple punitive. It's not just taking away your freedom. There's abuse.
There's trauma, there's mental health.
Abuse. Exactly, yes. Not getting adequate medical treatment.
Yeah, PTSD, like there's just all kinds of things that happen. And then also, it's almost like a really screwed up version of the Hunger Games, essentially. Because it's like, if you survive this, if you, may the odds forever be in your favor. And it's like, I think that we need more people to speak up about this. And it's also the reason why Kamala, I know it absolutely shook her to her core, because she just knew that she was gonna slam that Black woman Uno card on the table and that she just automatically had it. But no, sis, you participated. You actively participated. Even hearing Kamala Harris talk about cannabis, the fact that, oh yeah, cannabis, stop, sis. You still have people you helped put away for nonviolent crimes sitting in prison, rotting away, and then you're gonna use their life and the things that they did as a talking point to get you in that seat. You're not gonna see that seat until you go back, take accountability for the ways in which you participated in harming Black folks and people of color, and then come up with a tangible plan, or a plan that's gonna yield tangible results to help us rebuild our lives.
You're completely right. I don't have anything
Sorry's never enough. It's sorry and then some actions afterwards.
But you just got to be heartless to not want to forget the state's budget. You've got to be heartless to not want to do what you can to rectify this. And if 2 million is the limit, you've got to want to give it to that man. Our judicial system and our city government shouldn't be about just our budget. shouldn't be about doing whatever we can to protect our own. It's got to be about taking care of the people, and taking care of the people here when you shouldn't have to find 10 different legal definitions of him being innocent.
I think some of it also is maintaining power. It's about fear. Fear is a powerful motivator. And I think that we see in several areas of our society, whether it's through TSA, whether it's through the prison and industrial complex, the policing, it's this police state that we're becoming. And so I think it reminds people to stay in their place because it could be you who's incarcerated and who's gonna come for you and what evidence, and then what, you're gonna depend on a public defender? You know, like there's all of these like different things that I think it's a tool to maintain supremacy.